of the Smoke Pit's a special broadcast, an emergency broadcast, because as we have seen over the past 24 to 48 hours, a lot has happened with our president, with Iran, and with the threat of a genocide. And so tonight we wanted to bring veterans together to talk openly in the Smoke Pit about what's going on. So welcome.
Hey everybody, John Moses, Chelmsford, Massachusetts, 5051 ambassador, and I am excited to be here with Katie and the rest of the group when they come on, and talk a little bit about this crazy stuff that's going on in the world. Hey Brian.
Hey everybody, hey John. So my name is Brian. I'm with Massachusetts 5051. I'm a writer, speechifyer, and otherwise rabble-rouser for the state of Massachusetts.
And I am Carl, founder and CEO of Cranbox Politics and member of 5051 North Carolina. Here to talk about what's going on.
Thanks, guys. I know we threw this together kind of last minute. We knew that it needed to happen. There's a lot happening within the 24-hour period around the country. So let's get right into it. Let's start with the Wild Truth social text. I'm sure we have people in chats watching the 8 o'clock time limit of what he said. So within the Truth social text, the first thing he said is he was going to annihilate an entire population from this earth. So I have a massive problem with genocide. We've spoken about it extremely openly here about Israel and the genocide going on in Gaza. And now our own government and president is threatening genocide in Iran. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll just give a quick 2-minute kind of intro to what I feel. I think today what we saw was a president that whose frontal lobe seems to be disconnected from the front of his skull. And is really prone to fits of emotion that he can't control. What I see there is a man that doesn't understand what a life is worth, never mind millions of lives. And even if this 2-week deal that has allegedly come up, that we'll kind of see where that goes. What we have now is, as veterans, an opportunity to really speak about something that came out in a public place that can point to a president that is not capable of holding this office anymore, a president that is worthy of impeachment or the 25th Amendment. And now it is an opportunity for us to speak up, speak out, and continue pressure. But genocide is genocide, and I have a lot of faith in our military that some private in that chain or some sergeant or some lieutenant is going to decline an order. And there's already been rumors of that, which we'll talk a little bit about with CENTCOM. Especially from Pete Hegseth, who clearly has his own agenda, his own religious agenda, and an agenda to support the state of Israel and the country of Israel and the government of Israel over the needs of our own country. And that's kind of what we saw today, I thought. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, so this whole thing that, so what I find interesting, kind of related to this is, you're talking about the 25th Amendment. There has been some floating of this idea in the MAGA-verse. Has anyone noticed this?
Yes.
Candace Owens, I think Alex Jones came out today talking about the 25th Amendment. Like this war stuff has really spooked the MAGAs. It's kind of against their philosophy. They see this as kind of like a neocon thing. So it's a really interesting divide that is, again, potentially exploitable. I want to think about this like from the political side, like where's our angles of attack here? That seems like a really fruitful vector to potentially be mined. So,
I've been saying that for a while. Within the MAGA sphere, right, is the MAGA first agenda. And one of those was no more wars. That was a campaign promise by Donald Trump, right? Like, we're no more wars, America first. And here we are. In a full-scale war at this point. It's not full-scale. We're not totally boots on ground. But like I've said, across multiple smoke pits, how many countries need to be attacked for it to be considered an actual world war?
Right.
Because I think we're there, right? On like the level of how many countries. And so we need to be honest, like John said, of uh, like where are we as veterans? What do we need to say about the 25th Amendment? And like, do we need to do this? And I think we do, right? I think we need to be lobbying our congressmen and our senators to do something because this is going to shift global diplomacy forever and our standing in the world. And people are not understanding that good enough.
What
Yeah.
about
So
you,
I'm
Carl? What's your
sorry.
thoughts?
I've been quiet because my dog has been running around trying to get calm, and I'm like, "Yo, dude." Um, so I'll be honest with you. It's it's interesting to me seeing what has been coming out of this administration. I mean, with this war, it has been nothing but consistent backtracks, right? Like there was the in late 2025 we talked about how we destroyed their ability to make nuclear weapons, and then
Yep.
in at the
Yeah.
beginning of this year it was Iran is weeks away from making nuclear weapons, and then it was we've annihilated their air defenses, and yet they somehow managed to shoot down F-15s, and they managed to hit an F-35,
Yeah.
and in addition to that they're able to take out the E3 that's sitting on the ground in Saudi Arabia, right? Like there's so many contradictions coming out of this that, and we've talked about it in other podcasts where there is an indication just because of the lack of clarity that we're losing this war, and then you tie it into the result. And I'm sorry if I'm getting ahead of us, but what has come out tonight, Taco Trump has given us a 2 week ceasefire that
Yeah.
essentially sets us back to square one, um, and results in us not just getting back to square one, but we've lost billions of dollars in military equipment. We've lost countless American soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines. We put over 100 special operations forces on into a temporary fob in Iran, and then lost millions of dollars of equipment and aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, all of those things, you tie all of that together, and it's like this administration is flailing. This
Yeah.
administration doesn't know what they're doing, and this administration lacks an understanding of leadership. Now, I'm not a medical professional, so I won't talk to the fact that Donald Trump seems like he's gone absolutely insane, or that he's having issues with dementia or whatever it is. But what I will say is that I think that what happened tonight is indicative of something that we've also talked about. The military has a command structure in place with leaders in specific billets that are still following the letter of the law, both national and
Yep.
international. And I think that that is what really truly happened tonight. I think what happened is that there was a Department of Defense effort to target specific civilian infrastructure points, and
Yep.
the targeteers said absolutely not. Like that's a no go for us because we have criteria that we have to meet in order to qualify these things as certifiably military targets. Otherwise, we enter into the realm of breaking those international crimes that we know as war crimes.
Yeah.
So I think this was a success in proving that the system is still functioning, albeit in a crippled fashion.
Absolutely. And Carl, just to talk about what we just gave up, right? So we go to war with Iran to for regime change first, and then it's nuclear, then it's ballistic, then it's this, then it's that. But here's the thing. Now we've spent an entire day with a lot of the country scared, including MAGA people, right? Including some Republicans that have now been afraid. But listen to where you said we went back to square one, and I would actually argue that we've gone backwards into the stone. Our policy is back in the Stone Age now. So just a couple of the things, right? So they want a permanent end to the war. They will not be attacked again. They want Israel to stop attacking in Lebanon. And do we really think that Israel is going to accept that, right? Because they're actually moving in to stay in the bottom third of Lebanon. All U.S. sanctions being removed from Iran. Opening the Strait of Hormuz and then getting that $2 million, which they would split with Oman, with the $1 million that goes to Iran going back into rebuilding their country. So I remember hearing that years ago about plane loads of cash or whatever. Maybe we shouldn't have given the cash back to Iran. But here's the thing: we've just enriched them. They look stronger than us. And one of the requirements is for us to now retreat from the GCC countries, the Gulf Coast countries, right? Those are places we've been employed for decades. And a lot of American blood was spilt trying to get those places up and running and up in Iraq. And we still don't even know if some of the smaller groups, the Hezbollahs, the other types of groups in Iraq, there's a whole Iranian resistance in Iraq now. We have come out of this looking weak, and not only do we look weak, but we have a president that we don't even know if they're getting real information or if he can tell the difference between what is real and what is AI. Because what I've heard is, and what's been reported is that his briefings were essentially just 2-minute highlight reels of things blowing up. So I'm going to pause there, but I just want to say that not only did we not win, we actually have just moved backwards, both in military standpoint, economic standpoint, and we have given control of the Strait of Hormuz to Iran permanently, as far as I can see.
Yeah, art of the deal. We've negotiated away all of our sanctions leverage and all of our leverage in the Gulf countries. The Gulf states themselves are pissed. They
Yeah.
actually, at this point, I would bet, are probably in secret council saying, okay, how do we get the Americans to leave? Because they actually provide us no security and are currently a liability. And they're looking for other security guarantors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah, so I liken this to it's kind of funny, and it's also not funny. In this decade, two major global superpowers, Russia and the United States, have gone to war, and in this decade, both of those major superpowers have been stunted by a country that is supposedly militarily inferior to them. The
Right.
only difference being that Russia got stunted by Ukraine and is still fighting because their leader, Vladimir Putin, doesn't give two fucks about his people to the point where he will throw them all against this fight and
Yeah.
in an effort to not look weak. Whereas Donald Trump, he also doesn't give two fucks about his people. But he is looking at it from the point of view of, can I get rich off of this? Did I get rich off of this? Yes. Does it make me look like a weak little bitch? No, yes, but I don't really care because I'm a weak little bitch, right? And that's the honest to God truth. Donald Trump and this administration is full of weak little fucking babies that like
Yeah.
to talk a big talk. And then once they get their money, they don't care about anything else because it's not about whether or not they're the bully. It's not about whether they're the big bad people on the block. It's all about whether or not they can get rich. And that's what is going on right now.
It's
yeah,
going to
another
be seen as the greatest grift in American history,
Hmm.
right? As we don't spend enough time talking about how much money the Trump family has made during this presidency.
Yep.
However, I do think that John and Brian, everybody is correct that the global dynamics are going to shift, especially with the GCC countries. And it would behoove them to be working very diligently to remove America from their countries. Because one of the reasons we were there, right, was like handshake deal will provide, defense to your country, blah, 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 blah. But as we've seen, like none of that is happening. And so there is going to be that dynamic shift. However, John, when you were saying, oh, we're just going to go back to, the deal. Well, we've done that in every war
Yeah.
as of recent. I mean, look at Afghanistan. We spent 20
Yeah.
years in Afghanistan, $20 trillion fighting the Taliban to give the country back to the Taliban. And we spent, decades in Iraq fighting a war. None of us still to this day are exactly sure why the fuck we were there, besides regime change on behalf of Israel at this point. I think we can all agree on that.
Yep.
Besides that, none of us really know. And all we did was create a power vacuum that then installed ISIS, which was 10 times worse than the
Yep.
original people we had to deal with. And so we have done this time after time after time after time after time. And so here we are yet again saying, oh, we're fighting the boogeyman for weapons of mass destruction. How many
Yeah.
times are we as veterans and as a population going to let weapons of mass destruction be the fucking talking point?
It's always 2 weeks too, right? It's
Yeah,
always
well,
going to be. It was. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Brian. You. I think you had your hand up first. Go ahead.
yeah. So the 2 weeks thing is actually something that Trump does when he's pulling a scam. He'll always say, "Oh yeah, I'll have an answer for you in 2 weeks." Like there's a whole running joke about him doing this. So like that is a tell right there. Anytime you see 2 weeks, there's something. He's just stalling for time, whatever. He's trying to get people off his nuts so he can do something else stupid or lazy or cruel or whatever.
Yep. Well, I was even talking about the 2 weeks to mass destruction. Was it weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? It was, Netanyahu getting on the stage saying they could have this in 2 weeks. They could have,
Yep.
for 30 years, I've heard that they were going to have nukes in Iran, for 2 weeks. And we just hear these things over and over again. But I think more importantly is we are just adverse to having consequences to our own actions. I heard, oh, but they've been at war with us for 47 years. Okay, Bob, what happened 48 years ago? Because we are the people that changed the conditions, right? What happened in Iraq that caused ISIS? What happened in Afghanistan that caused it to collapse? And that was our own deal that we pulled out air support and just all of these things that we expect. And we have a real attitude about it as a country and as politicians, like, hey, we're upset, right? We're upset that they're upset. Well, maybe we should take a look inward and talk about we're really bad at this. We're really not good. It's like, the thief that got caught and goes to jail and, keeps getting caught 6 or 7 times. Maybe you should find a new job, buddy. But at the end of the day, these gaps we've left in leadership in all of these different countries has really adversely hurt us. And again, the 2 week argument has been there since I was 20 something years old, right? And it's just going to keep coming up. I think, Carl, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, so I'm sharing this. This just happened while we were talking.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah, so for everyone who is unable to see, Russia has issued, following the capitulation of the United States, Russia has issued a warning that they will use nuclear weapons in Ukraine within the next 48 hours in order to wipe Ukraine off the face of the earth.
I wonder where they got that idea.
I mean, it's like, look, here's the thing, right? What just happened is Trump telling the world that the United States is fucking weak, right? And going off of my discussion or my tirade earlier, where I called the president a fucking bitch, I think that what's going to happen next is that China is going to get ballsy. I don't think Russia's going to use nukes because I don't think that's in the Russian calculation. I think that the reason that they're bringing that up is in order to bring forth more effort to talk about ending that conflict. But what I think is really going to happen is that China is going to get ballsy and they're going to go after Taiwan because Russia is a paper tiger, the United States is a paper tiger, and all this left is China. So I think China is going to make a move, and I think President Trump is going to allow it.
Absolutely. And and I think one of the things that's interesting is that maybe Russia is hoping for a similar result with Ukraine, but I think Ukraine's a country you could punch in the face over and over and over again, and they are patriotic and they're out there trying to win for their own people. And I think whether you agree with Iran with their leadership or what they stand for, they are doing the same thing. This is now a survival. It's now a survival type event for them, and they are not going to give up. They have something. They and I get to take this with a grain of salt. They said they have about 15,000 ballistic missiles still, and about 45,000 Shahed drones, and all of the manufacturing is now underground. They weren't going to give up. So we'll see what happens during this 2 weeks of peace. Whatever, like you said, if it even holds for 2 weeks, because there are attacks right now going on in Israel, in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem. There are attacks happening. And if they continue to happen, what's that response going to be? And the worst part of this is the person in charge, the president, isn't really aware enough of what's going on. And it's really being run by a former disgraced major, a staff major that was run out of the military because he had beliefs that were just not in line with American beliefs of self-determination and legal warfare and all of those kinds of things. This thing that gave us honor, all of the things that were mattered to us. So we're just in a spot where we have to really be careful, and we have to really understand that we don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. And you can bet your ass, though, that Iran is going to respond appropriately if they are attacked. And it's not great. It's not a great situation. What's going on, Brian?
Yeah, so I mean, and I've mentioned this before, but it bears repeating. Iran now understands that it kind of wears the daddy pants in this little conflict here.
Yeah.
And so what they're going to do is they're going to try to extract as much pain as humanly possible.
Yes.
The Strait of Hormuz is still mined, right? And we
Mhm.
haven't heard from them that they're going to demine it yet, that they're talking about doing it, right? They're gonna stretch this thing out because they got the reserves locally to kind of maintain their own needs for a while, and they're gonna make us all sweat because they want to make sure this never happens again. And they're not just looking at the U.S. They're also trying to make sure that any regional actors that want to get uppity can't screw with them either. They have a strategic imperative to do it, and now they have extreme motivation to it. Like, they don't need nukes to kind of control the narrative. They have the Strait of Hormuz. So,
Right. Economic warfare is effective.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to give up the mines in the Strait of Hormuz. I think that they're going to use that as leverage, right? Because right now, there is a shipping lane through the Strait of Hormuz, and it goes through Iranian territorial waters, which gives them control of the flow of traffic. And with this new imposition of a $2 million per ship toll, what's going to happen is they're going to leave those mines there so they can continue to maintain positive control. And then they're going to say, listen, either you give us the money or we're not going to tell you where the mines are, and you can go ahead and try it, but you're going to blow up.
Yeah. Think
Yeah,
Suez
I
Canal, right? Suez Canal is
we
controlled
haven't
by a country. It's a similar kind of vibe.
we haven't agreed yet to these terms. It's just like, and I think what Trump said was something along the lines of like, this is a great basis for negotiations, which, by the way, is just him tacoing. That's all he's doing, right? He's walking away because he realized he caught the dog and he doesn't know what to do with it. Another thing that happened too, which is really, really interesting, I want to make sure we raise this, was there's this major general, and I've been watching him on the other screen over here, that is saying that he's been in talks with CENTCOM, which, for those of you who are not in the military, it's central command. Okay, which the U.S. military is broken up into commands that kind of are in command of forces within a particular like geographic region. So like Europe, Middle East, all that. So CENTCOM. And what he's saying is that CENTCOM fundamentally is refused to execute some set of orders. This comes a few days after, or today comes a few days after the purge of military officials that happened over the weekend, which probably has some relation to that. I mean, we don't have any evidence of why they were purged, but I mean, I find it entirely believable that Keg's breath went to them, probably half in the bottle and saying, okay, you want to go cut some more crimes? And they said no, and so he canned them.
You'll never hear that, though. See, the military is professional. They're not going to go out and they're not going to air their dirty laundry. But I can promise you there are people in the military that do not agree with this. And those strike packages that were declined, which is the reporting right now, were civilian targets. And so, again, I think, Carl, you mentioned it, is there's this younger generation. I don't think civilians even realize we get law of war training from the very first day you join the military. It's in basic training, it's in your ROTC, it's in your service academy, it's all the way through, and we have to live those decisions. And I would like to clarify this for any civilians watching. It's not just illegal orders we're compelled to not follow. They're also immoral or unethical orders. So there's three standards that now, is it easy to decline an order? Because you're going to have to prove that it was any of those things. But I do think we have good people, especially right now, right? Everybody in the military, for the most part, is the senior levels are GWAT. And GWAT had to learn these things the hard way. And we fell down a bunch of times. And it was people like Hegseth that we used to be worried about. When they get these crazy tattoos, and you be like, bro, you're not really, you want to be something else. You want to go out and fight and just kill indiscriminately. And that isn't what the United States should be about. And I know I'm kind of being a little bit high in my principles here, because we haven't really always accomplished that mission. But I think generally speaking, when you're talking about the common service member, they're trying to do the right thing. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what I hope our citizens and our neighbors will look at.
Yeah, I mean,
I
go
I
ahead,
want to
Katie.
push back on that just a little bit. Uh, and the reason being is I want to throw this idea to you three and get your input on that. Is that like we we as veterans, we want to believe that people in the military like want to do the right thing, right? Like that is
Yeah.
inherently because we're the GWAT kids. We learned from Abu Ghraib and things of that nature that those things shouldn't happen, and you should probably report your battle buddy if they want to kill civilians, right? Is
Yeah.
because it makes us all look bad. Okay, we all learned that, like you said, John, the hard way as the GWAT era. And now, my battle buddies are in senior non-commissioned officer roles
Yeah.
on active duty. However, I do worry with people that are joining now, right? Like
Yeah.
you see these recruitment videos that are going out of like lines of kids walking out of MEPS and, oh, it's the next generation of soldier. At least our era, we were somewhat lied to about why we were joining. Like the homeland was attacked,
Yeah.
and we were doing it under the premise of patriotism, love of country. A lot of us were, not all of us. Some of us had financial reasons. Uh, but how do you justify the soldiers joining eyes wide open, knowing who they're serving under, knowing what they're committing to, and then still in the same breath be like, but they're trying to do the right thing? I don't fucking think so. I think that you have an extremist ideology that is allowed now, and you have a faction of society that was ousted and, sock partied by all of us, when they said stupid shit in formation. And we were like, hey, man, you probably shouldn't say that. Um,
Mhm.
but now we have an allowable justification of that ideology, right? And so I don't know. I'm not wholly sold on the idea, on the premise anymore that people are joining for the right reasons and that they're just going to do it for the right reason. I'm not sold on that anymore.
I mean, I don't know if we have a ton of data about this, like kind of the ideological temperament of people going into the military fresh. But I do know that the kinds of people who authorize remote strike packages are generally going to be people who've been doing this for a decade. So,
Yeah.
these are going to be folk who like joined like 2010. Um,
Mhm.
you could also think about like what happened in like the Wehrmacht, right? Where you had factions within the Wehrmacht was the German military during the Nazi era, and they were regular army and then the Nazis kind of took over, and the regular army had to execute their orders, and so at the beginning there was a lot of resistance in the Wehrmacht. They didn't want to do all these kind of illegal, heinous things, and eventually those people kind of just got chaptered out through attrition. Like they either lost their job, or like somebody pushed them out, and then you had all these kind of Hitler Youth types that kind of came in underneath, and it
Yeah.
basically hollowed out the entire institution until it was essentially just a facsimile of the Nazi Party. We might be on that path now, potentially, but I think that military culture is very, very strong, and it's also very insular. And it's also not easy for like the civilian side to actually say where specific people go because of the way it's all done and the way people are promoted and the way kind of authority is distributed. I think the military will probably outlast the Trump administration. And then, yeah, there might be some things we have to fix once that's done. But I think the military is going to survive this relatively intact. Thing I wanted to comment on Moses, because he was talking about the what's the word I'm looking for? The uh, the sort of moral character of people who enter the military,
Yeah.
and but also like the fact that we went into war in false pretenses and probably done some things we shouldn't. One thing to note is the difference in civilian casualties to combat casualties between a military that actually cares about human life and one that does not is night and day. And we've always been on the low end of that spectrum. Like, yes, people do get killed in war. Collateral damage is an unfortunate euphemism, but that is what happens. However, very small numbers of civilians generally get killed in our military strikes because of the way we fight, and is both doctrinal because we focus on specific kinds of targets because it makes sense to do that, and also just because there is an ethical layer that kind of reviews strike packages to determine their legality before they're executed on. So.
Carl, you're muted.
You're supposed to not tell him and let him go for a while. And just
No.
watch.
Well, then it would just be a pregnant pause. So what I'll say, and Katie, I see what you're saying. I do. But I also see it from a different perspective, right? To this day, the military remains one of the primary methods for upward mobility in economic classes.
Yes.
And so what I would say is that a lot of these kids that are joining in order to get themselves out of the current economic situation that they're in and elevate themselves to a higher economic situation. There, of course, there's always the pride of country, the desire to serve. You know, as a recruiter, we had all these different benefit tags that we had to dish out and have the applicants give to us. But at the end of the day, I personally know someone that is in the process of joining the army as we speak, and she's doing it because she fundamentally has no other options for economic elevation. Like, she wants to better herself, and she knows that the military is the way to better herself. She does not agree with anything that this administration is doing, but she still understands that that's her only way up. And so she's grasping onto this and hoping that she can ride through the process and manage to get through it and take advantage of the benefits despite what this administration is doing. So I would say that that is indicative of the larger population. Do we still have the MAGAites that are joining? Absolutely. But I think that their time in the military is going to be very short lived, because they're going to get in and they're going to get beat in the head with rules of war and engagement and in the way that escalation of force and all these things that we're supposed to do, that they're going to be like, yeah, this isn't what I signed up for, man, and they're going to get out, right? They're going to be little piss hands. So we are introducing the next group of shitbags, but I mean, we do that every year anyway, so.
we
Yeah.
eventually-
One advantage about these MAGA chuds is we know they're all like morons and fools and aren't able to do anything competently. So a lot of them actually just don't even make it. But then too, they'll do the thing where like I was in the military and they'll wear the gear and try to get the discounts, but they got dishonorably discharged. Like you see that a lot with a lot of these guys, especially the ones who are really roaring for a war. Like those are the guys didn't actually do the thing, right?
Yeah. So I mean, like I joined.
That's so common.
I actually wanted to say that I really identify with your friend there, right? So I joined in '96. There wasn't a grand reason to join the military, except I wanted to get to the dentist, and I wanted I wanted stuff like that. I wanted to be able to get a paycheck and have a place to live, and like kind of wanted to be able to be independent and all those things. And then after 9/11, it changed for me. So I changed MOSs. I ended up deploying, and it became something bigger. I think a lot of younger kids, when they join, they don't really know why they're joining. Or, some people like me just spur of the moment. We're like, I'm going to do this, right? Like, why not? I have no other option. I'm not going to college. I do want to mention, I think, Katie, you said, maybe we're taking some of these into the military, but I actually really believe that crop of people are really going to places like ICE and the Border Patrol. I think those give a much more permissive type of environment. They can have the tattoos. You can have a Nazi tattoo on your neck, and you can still become an ICE agent and make a ton of money with 6 weeks of training. And I don't know who said this. I don't want to take credit for it, but somebody said it to me, or I read it somewhere. Essentially, it was ICE agents in Border Patrol. They're too dumb to be cops and too lazy to be soldiers, right? So it's easier for them to go in to do the things that they want to do. Because I'll tell you, if I was an E7, a GWAT veteran, and we get some private and he's got some shitty ideas, his life's going to be miserable. Like I'm going to be relentless to make sure he gets out of the Army. And now I know I'd probably get in trouble, right? But I'm going to stand by my ideals, the things that I learned, side by side with my friends while we were deployed. So I'm just saying, I do see that. I do see they'll get in, but I think Brian was kind of alluding to that too, is that we'll scrub those sons of bitches out because they don't need to be there. And the first time they hurt somebody in your platoon or in your section or whatever, it'll be a long time. It'll be a couple long days for them until they understand how they need to act, and then they'll probably get out because they're not getting all the attention they want.
I just find it really interesting, kind of an aside, but I always thought it really interesting that a lot of the people that end up in kind of like the Trumpian orbit and like doing the things that he wants them to do, like these guys are normally like kind of cranks and weirdos and whack jobs. Like the whole administration is basically DEI for cranks.
Yeah.
Like because they don't respect competence, right? And in fact, competence is a threat because if you're competent, that means you actually know what you're talking about, and you'll give people lip when they're doing something dumb. And it's just the way it is because these people they're fragile, weak egos, and it's all about the assertion of power, but no actual understanding of how to utilize it. There's a
power
reason why. There's a reason why we try to structure the government as at least kind of a meritocracy, and we do. I think we do a decent job at it. And these folk do not belong in the positions of authority that they've been given at any level.
Absolutely not. And John, I think you're right about them joining ICE. And I know we were all kind of making jokes. I think it was last week about the draft. And although it's not a laughing matter, what we were talking about is like the weird things that happen at MEPS.
Yeah.
That like none of us really talk about at that time, and then we actually don't talk about it until like 20 years later, and we're like, did you get your butthole checked by the same guy we did? And
the guy that checked my butthole was like 90. He had checked.
I think it was the same 90-year-old man for all of us, and he just went to every single MEP station. Like I fucking believe that inherently.
Is that like an actual MOS like butt checker, like the dude?
No, he was a billionaire, if I recall.
Or doing the duck walk.
Oh, the duck walk.
The duck walk, or Carl's shaking his head. But we all think of these things as like normal, right? Yeah. Like at that time, there's 20 of you naked in a room doing the underwear Olympics together, and you're like, this is normal. And then we all get out and we're like, that really was kind of odd, huh?
Yeah.
And my point of bringing that up is for people thinking about joining the military, like you do need to know that there is some weird shit that happens in order for you to join. And when you're in MEPS, standing there in your underwear with 20 people around you and they're asking you to do the weirdest shit, just go with the vibe. It's normal.
But it makes you wonder, like, how many of these people that didn't really research, right? Because I didn't know about that. But I mean, like, you got like some kid that's a big Trump supporter. I'm going to go blow up, Persian people, dark people, and then he gets in, and not only does he do a duck walk, but he gets a finger in his ass. Like, welcome to the military. I feel like it's going to be a little different than you think.
Yeah, and he gets some shit duty. Like, he's going to be washing pots and pans.
Literally, like shit duty. And then as a private, you don't really
actually,
have
those
any
guys
power.
Those guys are generally going to be ate up as fuck. So, like, the staff sergeant in charge is going to be like, yeah, why don't you do that?
I got to say,
what you're good
don't
for.
ever doubt a man's or a person's ability to succeed through hate and anger, right?
MEPS was creepy.
Yeah. MEPS was creepy. I think that's part of it, though. Like they're trying to acclimate you to being uncomfortable, and that's kind of like part of it because they have to get you. They're almost getting you ready for basic, and so they're trying to introduce you to this idea that like you don't mean shit and like you are scum and you just need to be scum and just get used to that for a little while. So, like part of military culture is just having the gumption to like endure discomfort, and so
radical acceptance. So when I go out with a bunch of my army buddies like that we deployed with, I often will just say this like to the waitress or like to just people around, and I'm like, we've all seen each other naked, and they're like, what? And I'm like, oh yeah, like we're in the army together. We used to shower in the same place, like. And you're like, it's not really that weird if you just radically accept the fact that I've seen all my friends. And people used to make jokes. And that just people that were in the military just aren't going to get this. But so I'm kind of laying it all out for you. Ha, that was a dad joke. But yeah, we used to like play jokes, we used to like laugh, and everybody just be butt naked, and it was just that's it. That's the radical acceptance of life in the military. Is you're just gonna see weird shit, and not not everybody looks good naked either. You know, some are less attractive than others. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
But
and
I
I mean, so I was Katie. I was shaking my head because of the duck walk. It had gotten brought up a while back, a couple weeks ago, and I, in my infinite wisdom, decided that I wanted to try and prove that I could still do it.
Oh no.
I got down in the squat, snap, crackle, pop, and there was no movement after that.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't happening. But to everyone's point, the long and short of it is, and as a recruiter, I used to tell my kids this all the time. It was the military is going to make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You're going to find yourself in situations where you're going to be miserable, and that's okay. And for the first 4 years of your life, you're on cleaning duty. You're going to be cleaning toilets. You're going to be scrubbing walls. You're going to find yourself upside down cleaning a ceiling for some ungod known reason. And there's going to be a general that comes by on base, and all of a sudden, base beautification. So, I mean, all of those things are going to happen. And so, what I don't think that these MAGA kids are prepared for is that inevitability. And the ones who are prepared for it or do adapt will eventually find themselves realizing that MAGA is the wrong way, and their entire culture and mentality will shift. So I think that's coming down the line, and I have, like everyone else here, I've got faith in the military. I think that as an institution, that is the one spot of shining light that we still have that's going to remain as untarnished as possible after this administration goes away.
Yeah.
I mean, throughout history, we've seen good men of different militaries stop, things. My Lai is one, but My Lai is the one that we all know about, but we don't enough talk about the Russian, right, on the nuclear sub that was set to set out a nuclear warhead and refuse the order. I believe that we instill a good order and discipline in the military, and what we see going on within CENTCOM of them, denying something shows that inevitably that we still do have good men and women in positions of power with good conscience. And John, I wanted to circle back about, yeah, we do talk about unlawful and lawful orders
Yeah.
a lot, but there is such an argument within our own community about refusing an order based on ethics. And that is something that we need to talk about, especially with moral injury being such a talking point within the community, is, you can refuse an order on three issues, and John listed them, and it's not easy. I see civilians across social media, the internet, on news being like, well, they could just say no. It's like, yeah, but it is not an easy process for you to be an E1 in the field being like, so that sounds unlawful. That's not how the military is structured.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that, so that every
Right.
order is not, questioned by lower enlisted, and it is beat into you that you follow orders, right?
Yeah, good palate cleanser for a nuclear war scare, as we can talk about.
I will say, Chris, in being in a room full of females doing it, we all did kind of give each other a glance of is this normal?
Yeah.
But
That's where I found out I was flat-footed. They were like, I managed to get in. Every time I hear somebody like, I would have joined the military, but I had a shoulder thing. I was flat-footed and had scoliosis. I just had to talk them into taking me, right? And this is 96. This wasn't a big recruitment time. But yeah, it was a little, the duck walk is legit. I actually know Chris personally. Chris and I deployed together, so I know who that is.
Well,
I might have seen him in the shower, maybe. But I just want to reflect back, because I think that was an important discussion. But balloon knot inspection, yes. I don't
Mm.
normally do this on the first date. They don't like that. And Chris does do that on the first date. But I think, like you said, though, our role in the military is execute, execute, execute,
Yes.
right? And so we're there to fight. But that's why you have a strong NCO Corps in the United States Army, which is something the
Yes.
Russians don't have, right? So
Yes.
when Joe Snuffy is going out and about to do something, if he thinks it's illegal, he's going to look at his NCO and be like, "Should I be doing this?" And then the NCO is going to know the regs and da 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 da. And if that NCO agrees, he's really no longer in a position to get in trouble if he doesn't believe he's following an illegal order. But these rank structures exist for a reason, all the way up to the commander, where, and then there's legal side, right? So then you go battalion, and then you go brigade, and you have legal resources to understand what's legal. But more so for me, I think the ones that are a little bit easier to understand are the moral ones, right? So those ethical, the other parts of it, where do I want to have this on my soul forever, right? Do I want to go shoot an unarmed civilian, or do I want to execute a POW, or launch a? And I know people that have done things like this and have gone to jail for it. And a lot of people don't realize there's actually a special cemetery in Normandy for people that committed crimes of like rape or murder, of even of Germans, right? Even of the bad guys, right? They did bad things to bad people, and they're not honored, right? They don't have flags on their graves, and you can't just go visit it. It's behind the building, in its own little safe space, where it's not exposed to the rest, because they're dishonored, right? And so a lot of the times, I think those choices come down: do I feel honorable about it? Do my values match with that? But the group think is real, and it is really difficult. It's more difficult than people think.
It is. And I was sitting here thinking about when you were talking about the NCO Corps, right? Because I got out as a staff sergeant, which is an E6 NCO. The NCO Creed.
Yeah. Do not ask me to say the NCO Creed without warning, please.
I was actually sitting here researching it because of my TBI to make sure that I had the first paragraph right.
Yeah.
And I am right in what I was thinking of it being like, no one is more professional than I. I am a non-commissioned officer, a leader of soldiers. As a non-commissioned officer, I realize that I am a member of a time-honored corps, which is known as the backbone of the Army. And so when we're talking about the NCO Corps leading soldiers, is we have to have good NCOs, right, that are making good informed decisions. My fear is this: with JAG being what it is, with good people being fired or leaving or retiring early, do we have the backbone of the Army we had during G1? Do we have the good leaders that are going to make the decisions?
Right.
Or do we have a bunch of yes men currently in the NCO Corps?
We should read the. I look. Go ahead, Carl. Said.
Having been someone who just got out in 2024, I can assure you that my experience, we still have the backbone. We still have those NCOs who have been trained by us GWAT service members, those of us who are in leadership roles that have said, this is the way that things are supposed to go, and this is the way things are supposed to be done. So I do think and honestly believe that the backbone is still there. Now, will it be there in 4 years? I don't know, but I won't be in or have the expertise to be able to say yes or no. But right now, I think that it's still there and it's still strong.
Yeah. I mean, the NCO code, too, because of the way it's promoted, is very insulated from political pressure. The officer corps is a little more exposed to political pressure. And I mean like external, like civilian political pressure, like the civilian control levels. The Pentagon isn't going to decide like which NCO gets promoted. They're going to set a point level, and each unit is going to kind of send its people, and you're going to go to a board and get promoted based on merit, or whatever they measure as merit. I do think, especially at like the staff level, the flag officer level, like that is what worries me. Like things like the purges, because when you're doing a purge, what you're not only just removing your most, like, think of it this way: you got 100 people in a room, 10 of them are going to be slightly better leaders than all the rest, and those people are going to get catapulted all above. If you get rid of those people, now you're going through the second tier of leaders and then the third tier of leaders, and out of every 100 people there's going to be one shithead, and then you try and find that shithead and you try to put him in the evil place that you want to put him to do the bad thing, right? And that's what I worry about, is they're going to basically systematically kind of chomp through the staff officers until they can find one that will be pliant, right? And you only need one to commit a war crime.
That's right. Now the thing is I think a lot of people don't realize too that they're going to be responsible after. So, to anybody that is watching that may be part of the administration or maybe in the service right now, we're watching, right? And I'm not just us, right? But the world is watching. And so if you do something and it gets on the news, you might get away with it for a while. You might even get away with it till you're 90, but there eventually justice will find you, whether it's through the Grim Reaper or, a police knocking at your door in your nursing home, but it will come. And I think that's a thing that is really important. I did want to do one thing, though, because we brought it up. I want to read the second paragraph of the NCO Creed while we're here.
Oh, confidence is my watchword.
Yeah. I know. I had to look it up, too, because it's been a minute. I'll tell you a military thing that drove me crazy was I always wanted my soldiers to be, like, warned. There was an NCO Creed call coming because I wanted to make sure, because it would always start off really strong, and then by the second paragraph, like, it would fade. And then, and so I had a thing where I'd be like, just tell me so I could practice with everybody to make sure. But again, for viewers that may not be military, you heard the first one, the no one is more professional. The second part of the NCO Creed, starting with the letter C, is competence is my watchword. My two basic responsibilities will always be uppermost in my mind: accomplishment of my mission and the welfare of my soldiers. I will strive to remain technically and tactically proficient. I am aware of my role as a non-commissioned officer. I will fulfill my responsibilities inherent in that role. All soldiers are entitled to outstanding leadership. I will provide that leadership. I know my soldiers, and I will always place their needs above my own. I will communicate consistently with my soldiers and never leave them uninformed. I will be fair and impartial when recommending both rewards and punishment. And that's a really powerful paragraph about what your role as an NCO is, right? It's who am I, and all of these people come before me, right? In the sense that I eat last, right? And then look at what this administration is doing to soldiers. Look at what like Pete Hegseth thinks about soldiers, where he gets, he's buying these suits and apparently trying to do stock trades in the background. It doesn't sound like he's ever understood that his needs are not the priority, right? It's the needs of the most junior soldier in the military, in a sense, is what you're trying to think about. If I make a decision, what kind of harm will come to, right? And he's making decisions that make money for him. It makes money for, the Trump children. One of them has a $600 million contract now to create drones for the United States military. Are those drones going to operate, right? Like, so this seems really small, this NCO Creed, but as you get older and you go up in rank, and especially when you retire, you start to look back and you're like, hey, these things were actually pretty important. So I just think it's interesting that you read that. And then Brian, if you'd like to read the third one, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you better look it up.
I don't, honestly. At one time I had that memorized, but I got out of the service almost 20 years ago. So
I know it, but Carl, do you want to say something before we read the last paragraph of the non?
Yeah, the Marine Corps NCO Creed is better than the Army NCO Creed.
Oh.
Yeah, and they pay you guys less. So
yeah.
Show us
right? That's
It was probably written in crayon.
So,
God, I wish Logan was on here because really, like, shitting on Marines is okay, but I really like shitting on the Navy. That's like my favorite branch to hate on. So, and he's the only Navy
who we
guy
just
I know, so.
forget exists, and none of us talk about the Space Force.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
I think
we all are just kind of like. What?
in my podcast, Katie, you said that they don't matter.
They do.
God.
So I remember that was a fun one.
One of these
But
days, we're gonna get a Guardian on here, and they're gonna go rip shit on us, and it'll be funny when they're like actually an awesome warrior.
I met one in the wild and I was like, oh, you do exist. And
Yeah.
it was at like it was kind of like the Santa commercial, right, with the M&Ms. Is I was at a Veterans Day parade and I saw someone with a Space Force shirt and I was like, oh, they do exist.
They're like the new
And
uniforms.
I have overexcitability. And so I like stopped them. I was like, are you real? Like, are you really one of those people? And they probably thought I there was problems with me because then I asked a bunch of questions, but I do know somebody I personally served with that went chief warrant officer when it opened up for the Chem Corps. And then they transferred from chief warrant officer of the Chem Corps to Space Force, from Army to Space Force. So
I'm sure they're super competent. I don't think you stand up a force. I gotta say their dress uniforms are hideous, though. Absolutely hideous. Have you seen them? I'm gonna look up a picture and share it here in a second. But
I feel like we
they're
just lost so much opportunity with them to like name them something cool, or like it was just like a missed
Well, you
a
know why?
missed opportunity.
Because it's a Trump branding exercise. Like all of the functions they did were just shit that the Air Force did, and they said, "Oh, we need a special branch for space now," and it's like we probably didn't, and they created it so that Trump could say he made a branch of the military, and
Where's that share button?
it's
well, I mean, to be fair, the Air Force originally did what the Army used to do with their Army Air
sure
Corps.
the Army Air Corps, but
I mean,
I mean,
so it's in a budding state. I'm curious about what the Chem Corps is required.
that's not too bad.
That's
not
really
too bad.
not bad.
Look at the pants, though. It's got a front bum.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that I mean
Maybe
that
they're just
could
badly
be
fit.
improved.
Like
And just in this picture specifically, they're now standing this guy in between is in the second ugliest uniform, which was the first until Space Force. So
Yeah, the
Air Force uniform is very 60s.
It's
Yeah.
very Men's Warehouse. Didn't buy it to fit. Didn't do anything with it. Just kind of threw it on and said, "Hey, here we go."
Yeah,
Yeah.
That looks like a chef jacket. I'm very confused.
it does look like a chef jacket. I feel like they just took Donnie's pants and put them on these poor people and are like, you get a front bum, you get a front bum, everybody in Spaceport get the front bum.
I mean, but without being like, hey, women uniforms, they historically, nothing in the military is designed for women. So
No, I agree with you. I bet that thing doesn't even have pockets. Those jerks. No, you're right. They actually are right. And one of the things that we never really got right, even during the GY years, was like pregnancy uniforms. Like women couldn't get a pregnancy uniform for a long time, and it was uniforms are like a thing, and you had the shirt that you had to kind of eyeball where everything went because there was no like seams to like line things up on. Yeah, women have a whole different challenges, plus the hair, and then well, in the Air Force they get to wear earrings and stuff. I don't know if they've changed that back, but you couldn't wear like non-natural color.
Oh yeah, you still can't do that. The bigger problem actually that's come out in the last I think it's like 7 years, and Steph would know a lot more about this because she was following it for a while, is the body carrier like plates and stuff was causing high rates of breast cancer in women.
Oh Jesus!
really,
Because
like the
they-
pressure or like
Yes. Because it's all like fit for men. And it's not for women. There was a whole series done by women in uniform about 5 years ago of all the breast cancer. It's like a stupid
Wow.
high rate of breast cancer.
I'm not laughing at breast cancer. Somebody made a comment, just that one. You had to like seal yourself into those things. They were crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember when they came out with the pull ones?
Yeah.
Like the cords, and then like running around as an NCO having to scream relentlessly at younger enlisted to stop fucking pulling the cords, like stop doing that on each other at like ranges and
So, I mean,
random.
the body
training.
armor thing. This interests me sort of in like a I don't know, just because it's a little funny kind of way. Like, do we need to like start making like boob plate? Like, do we need to do that? So like actually have like boobs like on the plate. which is
You
like the
order your
thing. It's like the
plates with a
video
cup
game trope,
size?
like boo plate. Everybody hates it, but maybe that's actually the right way to do armor for women.
You get like a B cup boob plate. That was hard to say, actually. That was a lot of
There
work.
was, so believe it or not, there was a female in my basic. I went to Fort Leonard Wood. I was Alpha Company 210. She was in Alpha First Platoon, and she was a G cup.
Mm.
And I remember thinking to myself, like, how is that going to work? Like,
Yeah.
No, that was a
just
thing.
do they make shit that big? I mean, I didn't follow her throughout her career, but yeah, anyways, back to what we were talking about. We squirrel moment very far off the beaten path is the third paragraph of the NCO core. And I think that it does come into play when we're talking, especially about Pete Hegseth. But I do want to kind of go back to a sentence that I did not mention in the first paragraph. Is I will not use my greater position to attain pleasure, profit, or personal safety. And we see that happening not only with Pete Hegseth, right? He was an NCO. We see it happening with people like Lindsey Graham, who Lindsey Graham was also in the military, and people don't
should know
say
that.
that enough. Is he is a veteran. He was a JAG officer, and the ideas that he espouses are antithetical to the belief system of the JAG.
Yeah.
And so for him to go across that, and then the third paragraph of the NCO creed is officers of my unit will have maximum time to accomplish their duties. They will not have to accomplish mine. I will earn their respect and confidence as well as that of my soldiers. I will be loyal to those with whom I serve, seniors, peers, and subordinates alike. I will exercise initiative by taking appropriate action in the absence of orders. I will not compromise my integrity nor my moral courage. I will not forget, nor will I allow my comrades to forget that we are professionals, non-commissioned officers, leaders.
Leaders! You got to yell the leaders part.
Leaders!
Leaders!
But I think one of the most important lines as I was thinking about this today, about the NCO Creed, is like, I will exercise initiative by taking appropriate action in the absence of orders.
Yes.
Is that empowers non-commissioned officers to always do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And to do it willingly, right? And to be thoughtful about it, because you never know in the military when you're going to get an order or not receive an order, right? And have to make a decision. Like, you end up in a country, your officer gets killed, right? Something, or gets maimed or wounded. I think that's a really good point. I think that's something that people don't realize about the NCO Corps and what it's like to be in the military, especially in those senior ranks, right? Where you're incredibly proficient and you've proved that you're, technically and tactically competent and all those things. That could come up, and that's a really poignant thought looking back on it, like how much trust they give NCOs in the United States military.
Well, we haven't done battlefield promotion since World War II.
That's right.
But that, we have to draw from history because that's how the military works, and that's how it continually works. And we've all talked about the military surviving after the Trump administration because the institution itself has been set up for survival. And
So
one
that's
of
the
the
question.
things
Sorry,
that
go ahead.
I wanted to draw on is battlefield promotions and the NCO Creed and how that ties together. Is during World War II, we did do battlefield promotions where your officer was killed, your XO was killed, everybody was killed, and then your lonely PFC became your first sergeant. And it happened all the time during that period. And now it doesn't. I mean, a four-star general does have the ability to promote someone on the spot. I've seen it happen. It's wild. It doesn't happen often, but it does. in theater in like this, right, where we are hearing of our bases across the region being decimated, where
Yeah.
we are hearing scattered forces, where we are hearing pockets of forces being secluded places. You know, I am saying all of this to make people hear. If
Yeah.
you are active duty and you are in this situation or you find yourself in this situation, draw strength from those that have gone before you that have made these decisions based on the NCO creed, based on the soldier's creed. Like there are reasons why it's indoctrinated and drilled into you and you parrot it, because you do think of these things, right? Like they do come back in weird moments of
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
And to people that are in right now, whatever service you're in, you're carrying the weight now. You're carrying the weight of integrity. You're carrying the of loyalty, of honor, of duty, of all of the things that people carried before you and in generations before us. And I think before we even came on, we talked about So we're part of this process. The retirees and the people that have gotten out and are still doing work out here. Think back to Vietnam when you had, these Vietnam protesters, these post-war Vietnam protesters. I wear my jacket when I protest because I think it's important for people to understand you're not going to call me, you're not going to say you're not patriotic enough, right? You can say that to some people, and maybe you believe it or not, which I don't. But I'm going to wear my jacket and I'm going to show you. It goes back to the World War One, the bonus army, right? That came out of World War One, and they made promises to those soldiers. The most revered generation has always been the World War II generation, and a lot of those people, the silent generation and the boomer generation, are now the ones that are leaders that are putting these people in positions, these soldiers. So I guess what I'm saying is know your oath, understand your values, understand what the creed means, and don't just make it a word that you have to memorize, right? Make it. I believed in living the NCO creed as opposed to memorizing it, and I think that is probably the best way I can describe it. Anybody can recite something and be performative, but to actually go out and say, "Hey, I haven't eaten in a day and a half, but neither of my soldiers and I have enough food for 3 people. They're going to eat before I do, right? And the lowest ranking person's going to eat first." I know that seems so small, but it's a real reflection on on a real leadership trait that's important. And I'll stop with this part, but I did want to say in that third paragraph, the thing I think is most important for all of those people, I will not compromise my integrity. Right? It's not talking about the Army's integrity. It's not talking about your friend's integrity or officers or the president's, your integrity, right? You're still a human being, and nor my moral courage. Your moral courage is important and your service is important, and to carry that torch is a real honor. And I hope the people that, if they ever do get put in a position where Pete Hegseth asks for your phone number or gives you a card or says, "Hey, if you have any problems, call me directly," you better understand that if you do that, right, you're going to lose trust of the people around you because there's a way this all works. And yeah, I just think it's a good. I think that I'm actually really glad we did the NCO creed. That's the first time I've read that in quite some time.
I think it's always a good reminder. The reason it got me thinking is, if Rory's watching, I saw Hannah is. We interviewed a candidate for governor of Michigan, the guy, Spaceman, or whatever the fuck his name is. It went awry. Um, he today on TikTok actually read the Soldier's Creed in uniform. It was weird, very performative, and it made me chuckle. However, um, like, as he was reading it, I like actually listened to the Soldier's Creed and was like, man. And then it got me thinking about the NCO Creed and how important these time-honored traditions are to keep our institution alive, to keep the integrity alive, right? I tell people all the time the 7 values of the Army, right? Um, oh, thanks.
Actually, we'll do the values.
Yeah, is the Army values, right? The leadership acronym. And Carl, fuck you. I don't know why you're laughing, but fuck you.
He's laughing at the chat, but I also
Oh,
appreciate
okay.
that
I'm
we're
not even
propagandizing this
oh,
Marine over here
Spaceman.
with
Yeah,
Army shit.
Spaceman. Oh
Well,
god.
I'm also the only Marine in this group, and like you're talking about Marine Corps leadership, or excuse me, Army leadership stuff, and I want to bring up Marine Corps leadership stuff, but I also don't want to make a pissing contest because some of your things align with us, some of your things
Yeah.
don't. I mean, the words are different. That's why I kind of made the comment of that. The Marine Corps stuff is better because that's as far as I'll go with it. I did not realize that we'd be talking about the creeds and the values.
It wasn't a plan. It was just like it kind of went there just because we were talking about Pete Hegseth and lack of leadership.
Yeah.
And
And he was definitely an army shit. So like he
Right.
was one of those majors, right? So
right.
at least he wasn't a Marine, bro. Because if it was Pete Hegseth, the Marine, I feel like we wouldn't want to. I mean, it's so hard because we all expect so much of former soldiers, Marines, sailors, whatever, right? But at the end of the day, they are people, and there are people that fail. And I think a lot of civilians and people that didn't serve have a real difficulty, like seeing that they see somebody in uniform and they're like, well, they're always doing the right thing. In the meantime, we're talking about Joe Snuffy making mistakes all the time and like firing his pistol the wrong way down range, or like, I had a guy sleeping in my room that used to piss in a bottle every night, and you'd be like, and actually Chris knows that guy too. So one of our viewers knows, but like you're like, people are dumb, and like some of them get into the army and some of them don't have strong values. Some of them like are there for the paycheck. And so to watch somebody like Pete Hegseth fail, who had more opportunities because he was, physically built for things like special forces, to actually be pushed into a staff position in the military as a major and then not to be used on the good missions is a real indicator to all of us that what a shitbag he was. And to see that person now be in charge of human lives and the care of soldiers, you could tell exactly what kind of major he was, right? He was a major that probably thought he was a commander, probably tried to make people do push-ups even though you're not supposed to do that after basic training. Like, he was probably that guy, and like we've all served with that guy. So, and actually, Carl, I do want to say I have a ton of respect for the Marines. I do think you guys have your stuff a little bit shorter, but I definitely love serving with Marines. I served with Marines in Afghanistan. I don't think I mentioned I was stationed on an embassy, so I got to serve with the embassy guards, which they were incredible. In the gunny, they had one gunny, and the dude was dope. But it was, I think generally speaking, there's a reflection in all of the different services that all of these things matter, like duty, respect, loyalty, selfless service, honor, all that kind of stuff. So,
I mean,
if you want to bring up your oath, you go for it, my friend.
No. I'm not going to do that because I don't want this to turn into that. But we do have our own black eye, which is JD Vance, right? Like JD Vance is not the stellar example of what a Marine is or should be.
Pillsbury Doughboy was a Marine.
It is very unfortunate that this administration seems to have attracted all the shitbags from all the services, which is fun.
They let you use eyeliner in the Marines?
If you tattoo it on. If you tattoo it on.
I'm salty tonight. I hate these people.
Right? Now, see, this is the thing, though. I have less forgiveness for people that serve, right?
Oh,
JD
yeah,
Vance
fuck
should
them.
know better. Pete Hegseth should know better. He should know the cost. He probably lost friends in GWAT, during GWAT, and we could probably go look this up. Or,
well, I mean, Pete Hegseth,
soldiers.
right? Like, Hegseth
yeah,
is
we're
just...
talking about Hegseth.
Yeah, he's a particularly rancid character, and I've brought this up before, but it's worth repeating, okay? This is a guy that had an op-ed put out by his mother that said that he was unfit for office because he has been credibly accused of beating women and because he's an asshole.
Yeah.
His mother did that. If you are the
And
kind of
sexual
person where
assault.
your mother condemns you in a national publication, you should be nowhere near that level of power. He is not trained for it. He doesn't understand it. He has these, fanatical, like, far-right Christian fantasies. Do you guys remember there was an article by Jonathan Larson in the Substack recently about this, where the Military Freedom Foundation, Military Religious Freedom Foundation, put out a bolo that said there was like 200 complaints from NCOs about people in command using this rhetoric that was like, apocalyptic, like, we're going to create the rapture type shit.
Yeah.
This was coming out of like some middle level officers, right? Where are they getting that nonsense? They're getting it from Hegseth because he's broadcasting this shit down because he's looking for the yes men. And this is how he's going to test whether those people are yes men. Is you say, okay, I'm going to say something insane, and then these people who agree with me are going to broadcast that out. And now I know who my allies are.
Conscientious objectors have been has gone up significantly. And
Yeah.
by the way, if you're serving and people happen to see it, that is a route you can object to these kinds of things. He knows better, and so he's got his own. That's the problem. He doesn't have an American interest in this war. He has some kind of not interesting.
Yeah, well,
Some
it's a
like a
religious
religious
interest.
interest. I
Yeah,
mean,
they
and
think
like so I'm Catholic, and they had a Protestant service on Easter, but no, I don't know if you read about this, but there was no Catholic service. There's no other services like essentially were allowed. And so I want you to think about an inclusive army that includes Catholics from the Northeast, right? I grew up outside of Boston, like, and I just pulled my accent right out of my ass to prove it. But like, that's one of the things they're bringing into it, and one of the things we did a really good job of was like leaving the religion bullshit. The not always, but like we tried to leave the religion bullshit out. All the stuff we used to think about, either you were competent or you weren't. And I believe in seeing people for who they are. I don't believe in I only see green thing, but I definitely believe that people are going to do the best they can, and it doesn't matter if they're a man or a woman or an other person, like somebody that might be trans or black or Puerto Rican or whatever. It's just the service, and you are competent or you are not. And Hegseth was not competent.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to comment on Rory's comment in the thread here about Hillbilly Elegy. So was Hegseth in Hillbilly Elegy?
No, he's using hillbilly elegy to talk about like mothers and like according to that
okay.
definition of what a mother is, she was his.
His
I
mother
get what
was
he's
a
saying.
bad
Yeah.
mother. Okay, I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, the way he came out, I'd believe it, but it still doesn't matter because, like, what kind of person do you need to be for your mother to put out an op-ed against you? And then, of course, you still have the credible accusations of rape, and that they're credible. There's all these stories around him. Then there's the drinking. There's like the Das Volt tattoo, which is basically, and this gets back to the messaging we were talking about earlier, where he's like this messaging that he pushed through the journalist Larson picked up on, like he's a fanatic, and he has a very, very specific fanatical belief where he believes like the last battle is going to happen in the Middle East. And now they're engaged in what could be the precursor to the last battle by playing this dick game, this dick and fart game with Iran. Like, this is what we're contending with here. Like, these people are insane.
I think one of the bigger things about Hegseth, Nick, hi Nick, made a comment on Carl. Can you throw that up, because I want to kind of explain something to people watching that don't understand about
Which
the
one? The
military.
National Guard and
Yeah, the
Army?
National Guard one.
I disagree with that comment, by the way, but go ahead.
Right. Yeah. So for people watching, yes, like he was National Guard. However, the way the military works is that it's the Army National Guard, all of us go to the same basic and AIT, but the way it is framed for the general public to understand it is that Pete Hegseth was in the Army. And as veterans, there is a hierarchy of status, even though we all don't like to talk about it and we all talk shit and make fun of each other. Like, we all see each other as like a hierarchical status, and everybody's going to say it different. But in like my mind, Marines, they're at the top of the totem pole for most of us, and then Army, and then like I know everybody's going to have a different totem pole. But in this totem pole, we will all agree, out of active duty services, Guard, blah, 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 National Guard is at the bottom. Because most of us will say National Guard and reservist are weekend warriors, or not full time, and like it's all of these like things that we say behind closed doors within our own circles, and we talk shit about National Guard closed door. But it's time to kind of open that door up, is that we amongst our own circles talk shit about the National Guard because they are the weekend warriors. However, when we were in a 20-year war, National Guard units were activated and deployed as active duty. And so, yeah, we talk shit about them, and Pete Hegseth definitely deserves it because he's a piece of shit. But there are National Guard members out there that like are equivalent in our eyes and minds of like, yeah, they deployed multiple times, their units were activated, they did the same, they were in the same suck that we were in. However, Hegseth is not that human, right? He is not that, oh, he's one of us National Guard members. He is one of the National Guard members that all of us behind closed doors talk shit about as a weekend warrior and does not deserve where he sits. And so I wanted to be clear about that because there is a hierarchy within the veteran community that's not talked about openly, but we all do talk shit about the National Guard, especially people like Hegseth in the National Guard.
Yeah, sure. It's like Army and Marines at the top, and then at the bottom you have the National Guard and the Navy. So we all understand
I'll,
that.
I was a career reservist, and I'll tell you, I was when I deployed 3 times, right?
Yeah.
Twice to Kuwait and like once to the embassy, and I have to tell you, sometimes my experience. One of the things that's really interesting about Guard and Reserves, first of all, some of the Guard people I've served with are incredible professionals. A lot of them are pilots. A lot of them, and they also get real shit work for bad state planning. So if there's a big snowstorm or a hurricane, well, you can't really plan for a hurricane. But say a state, gets a huge snowstorm. These people get called up for no benefits and shitty pay to go out and like truck around in the snow, and they get a bunch of shitty details. The Guard is, I think, the most difficult of the services because they're the least funded too. But I'll say, like, even though during my deployments, one of the real things that stood out for me was when we started getting out in the fobs or whatever, and you'd be like, oh shit, well, like, you'd be with an active duty unit, and they'd be like, oh, can you help us build something? And they're like, all I know how to do is operate the radio, because that's all they do, right? That's all the unit does, is they do the one thing. And then, but on our side, you'd be like, "Oh, I'm a master plumber. I'm an electrician in the real world." Like, and we used to always talk about the real world, like what we did. And like, I was a forklift operator when I first deployed, and they figured out pretty quickly that I was computer literate, and they stopped putting me in the forklift on my second tour and started putting me into the trailers to do planning and to help with Excel spreadsheets and all this crazy stuff, which ended up getting me into the embassy, which is pretty difficult. I was selected out of a battalion. And so I do agree with that. I think I do agree that there is a ranking system. I think as a reservist, though, my rank has reserve is higher probably than active duty on deployments.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, that is one
I'm just
advantage that
saying.
the National Guard brought, but ironically, for like things like nation building, like National
Yeah.
Guard and reservists, is because a lot of them come with civilian skills, and so you got to build a school and also defend it from enemy incoming fire. You can find a couple guys, okay, this guy's an architect, so why don't we put him over here? And like, and savvy commanders will sort of use people outside of the military allocation of jobs to like solve specific problems because they don't have time to phone into base and wait 6 months to get your guy to do whatever you're trying to do. So just use the talent you got and just use it. So they're a lot more
Yeah.
entrepreneurial actually. So they're really good for that. So they're good for like garrison duty and that type of thing.
We're really good
I
at that
agree.
kind of stuff. Yeah. And then, and at the end of it all, I think when you were out deployed and out in the different, wherever, like on a convoy or whatever we were out doing, people really couldn't tell the difference. Especially by the end of GWAT. Like at the beginning, I will say that my leadership was pretty awful from the reserve side. And I think those people hadn't deployed a lot. They hadn't really gone anywhere. There hadn't been any war. And so you'd have an E7 that'd be like, I manage a Dunkin' Donuts. And like, I'm not good at this. And you knew. And then, but we all took that as like, we're going to learn from these idiots. And then we built something better. So, but at the end of the day, we're all service members. And I had a ton of respect. And I found that I could get anybody to essentially do a mission if they had the right skill set.
Yeah, like, and I agree. Like, I spent my last year as active guard because I was getting my knee replaced, and so I went from active to active guard to go through all that therapy and stuff. And
Yeah.
so it is an interesting space, right, to see a bunch of people come together that are professionals, but like just in that hierarchical structure, right? It's like we always like kind of shit on the National Guard openly, and Pete Hegseth is just such a shit leader, and he's like the pinnacle of that. Is like we all talk about stereotypes all the time of like, oh, way to like prove the stereotype about the National Guard being shitbags, my guy.
Yeah, but let's
Uh,
actually talk about that because let's take the service out of it. He's just not a good person, right?
no,
The
it's
people
not.
that have been hired into this administration have been put into the place are put there for a reason, and it's because they tell Trump what he wants to hear. They probably, I am absolutely promise you, they have shown Trump AI photos of things. And that's why he probably thought Minneapolis was on fire or this place was on fire, right? And so your entire duty in the military is to tell the truth, even if it's hard truth. Like, even if you're talking to a president, you are required to tell the truth because, especially for an enlisted person or somebody that's deployed or somebody that's been in leadership, giving a president or giving your commanding officer or giving somebody bad information can result in bad choices, right? And I just think that he is one of the best examples of somebody that has a checkered past that they were able to leverage, put him in a place of power where he could feel big and call in all the general. By the way, I mean, one of the craziest things he did, and people were like, he's the Secretary of Defense. And by the way, he's not the Secretary of War. Congress has to change their fucking name. So the Secretary of Defense calls all the generals in from across the globe, and he thinks that they're going to come out and they're going to cheer for and then dead silence because every single person knew this was not right. Soldiers knew it wasn't right. Marines knew it was like we all knew that this piece of shit just like upended everybody's battle plans and training and blah 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 and blah 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 and blah blah blah, and that makes us less safe. That performative shit makes Americans less safe. It makes service members less safe. Pete Hegseth, whatever service he went through, is a piece of shit that thinks power is an ability to point at things and say, do it. And that's not really what it is. It's the ability to take information and to take something that dissents from what you believe or doesn't, or has information that maybe contradicts something you believe, and uses that in a way to improve survivability and improve the position of people and do all those other things. But Hegseth is a piece of shit. And that's really it for me. I think he makes people less safe. And there are soldiers that, and I'm Army, so I'm going to say soldiers that are going to really suffer. He's an idiot that would put people on Karg Island because it looks good on TV and because his boss wants it, instead of being like, sir, I don't agree. That's why whoever did refuse orders in CENTCOM are heroes, right? They're actually people with integrity and moral courage, and they have all those different characteristics and values that we really treasure in the service.
Yeah, so there's a comical moniker that's going around the Marine Corps right now that I've heard come out of some active duty Marines. And that moniker is referring to the Department of War as the Department of War Crimes and Hegseth as the Secretary of War Crimes. Just because of the fact that it's ludicrous the way that they're doing it, right? I mean, you talk about Hegseth, who was like, oh, I'm going to spend millions of dollars to change the letterhead and the name and all this stuff, despite the fact that it's not real. And I'm going to expect everyone to align and call me by my preferred name, which is the Secretary of War, when in reality, you're the Secretary of Defense. Meanwhile, you're going out and you are actively engaging in prejudice and discrimination against transgender individuals who legitimately are in the process of transitioning to their preferred gender because that's who they are, right? Like that's legitimate, but you call that illegitimate and call your fake naming convention real. Like that is the prime example of a double standard, and it's sick and disgusting. And honestly, I think what we really need to do is examine why our politicians, specifically in the House and in the Senate, haven't moved to impeach all of these motherfuckers.
Well, on the impeachment bit, I'm not sure if you've heard of this, but articles of impeachment has been introduced today, targeting Trump and Hegseth. War powers, murder, piracy. Article 2, militarization of domestic law enforcement. Article 3, serial unconstitutional detentions and deportations. Article 4, retaliation against constitutionally protected speech. I'm not going to go through the whole list. There's 13 articles here, and they're pretty juicy. I particularly like this one. This is probably my favorite article in the list. Specious, Article 12, specious national emergency, foreign terrorist organization declarations. I like that because they're trying to use that against us. Right. And that is an impeachable offense. It's a high crime and misdemeanor.
Yeah. Yeah, here's the thing,
Telling
though. Even
people.
going back, go ahead.
So here's the thing, and I think Carl said it in the chat. I'm here for articles of impeachment.
Yeah.
If and only if they can be completed. And as it sits, it's just, ceremony and pomp at this point. Yeah, you can probably at some point get it passed within the House. You will not get conviction in the Senate at this point. You just don't have the votes. And I would
Same.
like to see our legislators actually focus their time to put forth formidable legislation that they may get the votes on in the Senate, rather than something that we all know is not going to get passed and it's just going to waste our fucking time and we're doing it for political clout. And I don't see the efficacy of it besides, yeah, we introduced it. Good for you. We keep fucking introducing shit and it keeps not getting passed. And it's just a waste of time. It's like, yeah, we get it's election season and you want the fucking votes. I understand that. I want impeachment just as much as the next guy, but I want impeachment to work. And I actually want impeachment on high crimes and treason, specifically that. And the reason I want it on high crimes and treason is because it is the only way that we will impeach Trump and the entire cabinet in one go, is treason is attached. Without treason being attached, we then have to go through the person by person by person of impeachment, which is then going to do 2 years of nothing. And I don't know about y'all, but the world is fucking falling apart. I would rather actually pass legislation to save people in the streets from, I don't know, starving or their homes foreclosing or education falling the fuck apart. I would like to see impeachment and accountability. Trust me, I would like it publicly and in the square so that this does not continue to happen. However, if we don't have the votes, we don't have the votes. And at that point, we're just wasting our fucking time and our efforts. We could be organizing as veterans to use our voice uniquely and our power uniquely instead of continually push articles of impeachment. Al Green has done it numerous times now. Brian, you were there with me in November as Al Green announced it. It's been done and it is gaining momentum in the House. Good. Gain momentum in the Senate, and then I'll be impressed. Until then, I'm not fucking impressed.
Brian, I know you want to go, but real quick, I just want to just tack in here real quick. Imagine all of us that have gone through our whole lives. We went through probably I don't know how old everybody is, but that the government has things that are in place that'll prevent this stuff from happening, like impeachment, like the law, all this stuff, and all of those fucking things have failed all the way up until the Senate back after January 6th, right? Where the Senate, even after watching, because everybody wanted to pass the buck. And then the Biden administration comes in and the Department of Justice fails because they're trying to protect the institution of DOJ versus prosecuting somebody that if they get reelected again are going to do exactly what they're doing now. So all these things we fought for have failed us over and over and over again. And we need better answers in the next Congress and Senate where sane people are in charge. Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pick a fight is the wrong word, but I kind of want to reframe it. One thing the Republicans do really well is they understand the value of the performative. Okay?
Yes.
That the performative, what it does is it actually moves the narrative needle, and what you're doing is you're establishing sort of what the parameters of the discussion is nationally, and that is actually how they have managed to gain power, even though they're actually kind of rabidly unpopular if you actually look at the policy planks. What I like about impeachment as a performance, you have to get it through the House. But once you get it through the House, that is already a victory. Because now what you're going to have is months of trials in the Senate. It's going to gum up the works. It's going to disrupt Donald Trump's kind of centralized command structure. Because right now he's making all the decisions because he doesn't trust his goons to make decisions. He makes decisions for them because he's a narcissistic sociopath and he can't actually allow other people to have any will. And so the more you can kind of shovel shit onto his plate that he has to deal with, the less energy he's going to have for kind of, molesting the rest of us. And that's good. It's also a form of political offense. It energizes us. It depresses the opposition. MAGA is starting to crack. You have, MAGA chuds like, Alex Jones calling for the 25th Amendment. So, like, just putting it out there. And, like, here's what I want. I want to have an impeachment trial, and then we just read the names and tell the stories of the victims of the Epstein files on the Senate floor, on C-SPAN, on live television, and all of us just amplify that crap so it's in everybody's face all the time. At the end, everyone's going to hate us, but they're going to know we're right. And by the time the next election comes around, it's going to be so radioactive that no one is going to be able to touch this politically. And this is how you break the MAGA movement in its entirety. You actually don't need to get to an impeachment. What you need to do is you need to frame the argument for the midterms. And then we do it again. And then we do it again. And then we do it again until these people are obliterated.
Yeah.
That's my belief.
Yeah.
As a strategic matter. Because we cannot... There's no legislation that we can pass that is going to be able to help people with this supine Congress in power. They must be removed. And
I think leadership in both parties. In both parties have really failed us. I feel like the generation of political leaders that we've landed in a spot for a reason. And a lot of it has to do not just with Republicans, but with Democratic leaders allowing, a pretty aggressive Republican minority to push things that they wanted, despite our own kind of platform, right? And we still have these leaders like Chuck Schumer's been in office, and what the other dude, the McConnell, have been in office since like 1820. Like, I just get the fuck out of the way. And you sent us all to goddamn war, right? You sent us to goddamn war. And what was built out of that after is I thought we were going to be more in the leadership space and more of us in Congress. And there's not enough. There's not enough of us. We're all, some of us are I'm approaching 50, and they just stay there and they make the same decisions over and over again. And during that time, the world's largest pedophilia ring got its fingers around all these politicians, a bunch of them. And so think about that. Our country has actually been run in front of us one way, and behind the scenes, some guy that has leverage of, the president or someone on his, cabinet, or some billionaire that decided it was okay to rape kids, essentially, are now the people that get to make the decisions, right? And I think that's abhorrent, and we need to have a wholesale change of leadership with people that are more aggressive about fighting crime and going after these people. And it's going to be hard, and billionaires are going to murder people because they can get away with it, and billionaires are going to throw millions of dollars at races because it's not a lot of money for them. And we have to get money out of politics, and we have to go back to really being a party, not a party, but a country for people, because we've really lost our way. We're a corporate America now. It's corporate money that matters, because somehow corporations got to tag themselves as people. And I can't speak for the founders, but I truly believe that if the founders saw what corporations have become, because they were not the same thing. If they had seen what this had become and how interests were divvied up, I think they'd be sorely disappointed in where we are right now. Can you post that comment that I look good at 50? Thanks.
Yeah, I put it up there already once.
I had to see it.
It is refreshing to be not the oldest man in the room. It's really nice. But what is interesting is that it looks like former governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, could take the Senate for North Carolina this November because of everything that has been happening and because of Trump. So that's at least positive news. I mean, Roy Cooper was a great governor for the state of North Carolina, and he did his best to fight against a Republican majority. So it'll be interesting to see what he does when he gets into the Senate. He's replacing a feckless Senator, Tom Tillis, who is absolutely useless, and only decided to speak out against Trump once he decided that he wasn't running again, because it's okay now. He doesn't have to fight for his life.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think that what we have going on, I think you're right, John. I think honestly, we do have a problem with money in politics. I think we do have a problem with the court, the Supreme Court ruling that made it so that money was a form of a First Amendment voice. Like you could use money however you wanted because it's protected by the First Amendment. And I think that's a huge problem. So we do have a lot of cleaning up to do. There's a lot of things that we need to fix. And I think that it needs to start with accountability of this administration.
I hope Cooper wins. There needs to be more. I'm in a fellowship called. I'm sorry, Brian. Real quick. I'm in the Hoover Veteran Fellowship, and we have a lot of. And I'm actually going out there next month. And one of the things we're doing is what is GWAT's future in the world? Like what are all the values that we learned that are not being applied right now? Because while we were off being deployed, apparently we were building a police state, and in rolling things into DHS and passing the MPSM 7 and really like pushing liberty down. So while we were gone fighting and burying our friends, these fucks in politics were taking away people's rights, and I went along with it, right? I'm guilty. I went along with it too. So, but I digress. So Brian, I know you had your hand up.
Yeah. So just on the impeachment stuff, you said something, John, that made me think. There's another advantage to like a hard impeachment push too. Is it's a good kind of litmus test and test case for the types of leaders that we're electing in this next generation. What I think we want to test for is effectively kind of fighting spirit. Like who are the people who are going to say, no, this flag is mine, fuck you, okay, and drive the stake into MAGA's rancid heart, okay?
Yeah.
Who are the people who are going to do that? Now, I think like Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney are in a place of honor right now because they did that, right?
Right.
We got a lot of Democrats who did not. Okay.
Yep.
We got a lot of progressive Democrats who are. We got moderates like Jamie Raskin. Jamie Raskin's a warrior, right? Chris Murphy in the Senate. He's a warrior. Like there's people, there's green shoots of good leaders, but those folk are not elevated. They're not quite at the senior level status that they need to be as reflects their status. Like, Jamie Raskin should be Speaker of the House. Why we got Hakeem Jeffries in there, right? Raskin's 50 times more effective.
Yeah.
Like these are the folk we need to be elevating, right? Because they're the ones who are actually going to draw blood from these vampires, right? Before they destroy the country.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
Well, I mean, that goes into money, right? So who raises the most money? And I haven't looked into it, but I think that Jeffries raises more money for the party than Raskin does. I mean, it's the same reason that Nancy Pelosi managed to get Speaker, lose Speaker, and get Speaker again, because she raised so much money for the party, which goes into that whole we need to get money out of politics, because that shouldn't be the bearing. That absolutely shouldn't be the bearing. I think it's unfortunate that we lost or will be losing Jasmine Crockett next year, just because she got written out of her House seat and lost to Tallarico because he got more free publicity than she did. So I mean, not to down Tallarico. I think Tallarico is a great dude, but Crockett, she's a solid person, right? Like I liked her.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a shame we couldn't give each of them a seat. I do like Tallarico though, because he kind of plugs a hole in the Democratic coalition that I think we need plugged. So, like, there's not a lot of super religious people on the left, and I think churches are actually going to become a lot more important politically as time goes on for the opposition.
I'd like to see.
As you look at, say, all the churches that are now engaged in kind of activism, like, I'm friends with one of the leaders of MCAN, which is the Massachusetts, I'm just screw up the name, so I guess I'm not a good friend. I don't remember the name of the organization. But it is a network of like hundreds of activist churches in this area, and they go all the way from like Baptist to like Unitarian. And then they got Jewish synagogues, and there's, Muslim churches and like, African-American churches. It's a whole big coalition. And they are super interested in not interested. They're super oppositional to what's going on at the ICE facilities around here and everything else like that. And they're going to be a huge ally going forward. And they're going to probably be a huge ally for like get out the vote operations and things like that, the kind of things you need to win. So,
I just want to say, and I noticed Nick's comment down
John,
there.
real
So
quick, Katie's been trying to speak, but she's muted every time she starts
sorry.
talking. So if we could
Use the hand, Katie. We got hands.
Well, no, I mean, because it's like conversation's really good. But I did want to say something about impeachment, like, because we all want accountability, right? Like all of us, we want accountability of the ICE agents that, murdered citizens. We want accountability for the ICE agents that are beating the fuck out of citizens. Like we want that. I want that more than anything. And I want impeachment trials. However, I don't know about y'all, but I am tired of the ineffectiveness of our elected leaders. And I feel
Yeah.
like if we tie people up in trial after trial after trial after trial, we are just effectively like stopping legislation from passing. We have definitive problems in this country that need to be addressed. We have children that cannot eat every day. We have seniors that can't pay property taxes and are being kicked out of their homes. We have an education system that is being overrun by fucking religion. We have actual problems that need to be addressed by legislation. And I am a policy nerd. And if we are tying all of our human beings up in impeachment trial after impeachment trial after impeachment trial, we are not going to push legislation because we're not going to have the people for the fucking votes. And so, although I do want accountability, you know how accountability happens? Having an effective DOJ and court system.
Yep.
Okay, impeachment in and of itself of the executive branch can be done through Congress, but I would like to see trials. Public fucking trials, like displayed on nightly news for us all to watch the Nazis be tried, like the Nuremberg trials. Let the DOJ be effective in what they're supposed to do in their actual jobs. However, like I do want policy passed, and I don't care who passes the goddamn policy, but the policy has to be passed to ensure it doesn't happen again. Because
Yeah.
the reason that this is all happening is because we didn't have effective guardrails in place through policy. And we have effectively been leading a government through executive order for generations. It's not just Trump who has been doing it like through executive order. He's not the first goddamn president that has done it. It has been president after president after president that has done policy through the executive branch and then trying to codify it through the legislative. And that's not how the government functions. It's not how the Constitution was fucking written. We are supposed to pass legislation through the legislative to the executive to sign.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, and if we are spending years of trials, we are deadlocking the most important branch in our government in trials, and they are not going to be able to do their job. And I'm out here saying, do your job. That's what the fuck you're paid for. Because my congressman is Aaron Bean. And Aaron Bean, although he is not controversial, he does not do his job. He has not written any pieces of legislation. He does not earmark funding for my district. He does nothing. And so if he is tied up more in trials, he effectively is doing another 2 years of nothingness for my district. And so, like, I'm not wholly sold on impeachment hearings. I get the narrative, I get the angling, I understand for like 2028. But as somebody that wants to affect change in this country, it's done through policy. It's not done through impeachment trials. It's done through collective policy change.
I mean, I understand that. My fundamental belief, because of where we are in the country and what we're dealing with and the rancidness of it, it's sort of scrambling all of our brains in some ways, including some Trump supporters, because they're not following the plot at some level about what's really going on. I don't think we will get effective legislation of any type until 2028. And it is actually just not possible to do. And so it's actually to our advantage to extract. And again, like I use really kind of brutal metaphors because I think it's important to understand what we're in. That we need to be extracting a blood price as quickly and at the highest cost as humanly possible, because what that's going to do is it's going to open up the field. MAGA is cracking, okay? The Republican Party has no bench because Trump has literally eaten the entire bench. There's nothing left. When Trump goes, this whole house of cards is going to fall apart, and you will probably have 2 generations of Democrat control of both houses. That is possible. I think we
Maybe.
get ready for that by running up the score and spiking the ball in the end zone and then giving these people the finger. And then you are going to see a raft of policies. It's going to happen very, very quickly. There's going to be a lot of reform. Like, I think we're a full reform movement. We haven't quite identified what we really want yet collectively, but I see the shape of a reform movement coming out of this just because of the conversations we're having and what we're talking about. And we're talking about constitutional reform. We're talking about civic reform, structural
Yeah.
reform, which is
Structural
actually the unsexy stuff that you need that unlocks the other stuff to get done.
That's the stuff Democrats aren't talking about. This is what gets me frustrated when they're talking about
Yeah.
impeachment and all this other stuff. I want you to do something like make a Project 2020, whatever. But I did
Yeah.
want to address a couple things just because we've bounced around a little bit. So I did. So the rancid heart comment, Nick mentioned that MAGA are some of our neighbors. Now there are some MAGA people that are definitely rancid heart. There are definitely some Democrats that also have some rancid ideas too. And I just want to be careful to say, if you're MAGA or if you're a Trump supporter, I've met now more Trump supporters. I met a veteran the other day, and he was like, I voted for this, I support tariffs, I support this, but this Iran bullshit, because he was a military retired guy. I wanted to say that. I think so. Nick's got a good point there in the chat. I also want to say, if you want to look at our leadership, look at the fucking senators Democrats end up with. Fetterman. What was that other woman? What's her name? From Arizona. What, just an awful person. That they're not Democrats. And so the Democratic Party itself is not there for the protection of the United States. It is there for the protection of the Democratic Party. That's why when you see 3 people run in Maine, but you only get 1 email and 58 texts from the DNC or the Senate campaign for Janet Mills. Well, I don't want another 78-year-old senator that takes money from AIPAC. Seriously. Like, stop telling me who to be. And I think the party hopefully will, not hopefully, because I'm going to keep screaming it till my face turns blue, that we need to pick better candidates and fund better candidates, or even better, allow the primary processes to be unmolested by the National Party, because they are fucking it up. They fucked it up in 2024, and Trump came back in a much more educated usurper, and he's doing a much better job of fucking it up now because he learned something, and so did the people around him. But yes, and I agree. Pimplehead Miller is such a fucking dweeb, and I hope he hears that. He is such a fucking dweeb. I bet that guy got his ass kicked all the time, all the fucking time, like thrown in trash cans.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. We just we got to do better as a country. And the last thing was to Brian's point there: structural reform, getting money out of politics, getting Citizens United shit can, getting billionaires out of people's pockets, taxing billionaires, and instead of asking for $1.5 trillion for the defense, let's figure out some kind of healthcare plan, something that actually saves people money and makes this world survivable. Feed fucking poor people. We are the richest, allegedly, country in the world, and we can't even house the needy because we're such a selfish citizenry, and it has been flipped so backwards. And it goes right to what you said, Katie. This is supposed to be a bottom up. We're the popular sovereign. So, and we're getting close to time here, so I just wanted to get a time warning out there for everybody. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
So if I can throw a couple things in there, the first thing that I want to pop in there is it's controversial, and I'm probably going to get beat up for this one. I think that what should have happened under the Biden administration is that Biden should have immediately taken office and then absolutely pardoned all of the January 6th protesters and Donald Trump. Now, hear me out with this, right? If he had done that, it would have taken the wind out of their sails on we're being politically persecuted and they're only after us and they're the illegal ones. They're the anti-democratic ones. We live in a third world country. This is a kangaroo court, yada, 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 yada. Because guess what? It wouldn't have happened. And so that would have taken the wind out of their sails and would have reduced or brought down that temperature just a little bit, or maybe enough to have allowed for Donald Trump to not run again this in 2024. So that's the first controversial point. The second point that I want to make is my concern is that to Brian's point, I do see a progressive wave coming. But my concern is that the progressive wave is going to build upon the things that the current Trump administration is using that makes them so authoritarian in nature. I don't want to see a whiplash that goes back and forth between the parties where we just continuously persecute one another, and to a point where finally there's going to be one party that comes out on top that says, you know what, we're going to make MAGA Republicans, everyone, that entire party, it's illegal, and then unifies the entire country under one singular party. And the next thing you know, we have no longer state independence, and we have a federal authority that has complete control over everything, because Donald Trump and his administration has shown the blueprints and shown how to do it and how to get it done. So all it's going to take is someone on the left to do the exact same thing and do it as quickly as they can within the next 4 to 10 years, because that's what's going to happen, because people are going to be so upset about the Trump administration, and we're going to get that rush, and then all of a sudden we've got a left-leaning dictatorship that we didn't expect to come out of the whole Trump situation. So that's my concern.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say to that is this is where leadership does matter. We are going to need a leader of high moral caliber to navigate the post-Trump era, and if we select a bad one, we will pay for that mistake.
Yep.
Because there is going to be damage that needs to be repaired, and this individual will likely have to deliberately curtail their own power in order to accomplish what we think needs to be accomplished.
My ideal Biden was ran, did 4 years and become the greatest one-term president in history, and allow for the Democrats to choose their candidate through a primary process. And what he did instead was allowed a consultant that he paid $4 million a year, by the way, and a $4 million bonus if he got reelected, and a bunch of people to convince him that he was, because Joe won. That was the thing. Joe Biden won, I think, back in 2020 when everything went crazy, right? But then Democrat Biden said, I'm the fucking answer against Trump, and then ruined the entire potential of having an incredibly dynamic race. And he thought that, and I don't want to speak for him, I don't know what he thought. What I would have loved to have seen, 4-year, one-term greatest president in history type of story, allow the people to make a new choice and then move on with our lives. Because he actually said it on stage, and it was one of the reasons I voted for him so enthusiastically, as he said, I'm here to pass this on to the next generation. And then he didn't fucking pass it on, and he lied to me. And we now all see the results of what happens when your ego gets in front of the people.
I will push back on the one thing Carl said about the pardoning of Trump. But then, John, you spoke, and I went, kind of worked out. The last time a president pardoned a president was Ford and Nixon, and I do believe that the pardoning of Nixon was why Gerald Ford only was a one-term president. But with then you saying you wanted him as a one-term president, could have worked out for both of you. Like, could have done the party and the one-term president thing and taken the wind out of their sails. Because Carl, as soon as you said it, I don't know if you saw my face, I was like, yeah, we're good. Like, you ain't selling me on that bullshit. But then you sold it. I was like, yep. So we are coming up on time. The last thing I did want to address, I made myself a note about something that you said, John, about the GWAT era. And it's something I firmly believe, and it is something that we need to discuss more, right, as GWAT kids, is what do we want the world to look like? Okay.
Yeah.
But I do fear that our era, the GWAT era veteran, is going to be the last respected veteran era in this country. Is that I know, it's maybe, because you see a bunch of people now talking shit about soldiers, not understanding how the military works functionally, and that they can't just be like, oh, I'm out, like, and they're on a fucking ship in the middle of the sea. They can't just walk off.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it either, as a vet, right? It makes me sad. It hurts my soul. But I do think that we have an opportunity here as veterans that we need to utilize our power better and speak out loudly right now. I said it in our chat and I will say it for everybody watching. If you're a veteran, now is your time in your local area. Like, gather all your battle buddies, contact your local media station, your news station. They are probably wondering what our side of veteran is thinking, right? Like, because there is a national push of the narrative that, oh, all veterans are gung ho and go military and we're here for it. But we're not. There's plenty of us that are not. And so there is a value in that narrative getting out there. And so I implore you, please gather veterans among you in your area and start doing that. Do actions. Also, there's a national call to action over the next 48-hour period to do uh, war in Iran actions, right? Like, get veterans to speak loudly in those actions. Contact your local 5051, local indivisibles, whoever is active in your area. It could be, PSL, it could be a myriad of organizations. Contact them. It is time that veterans speak, right? It is the reason that we are so loud is because active duty cannot be. They don't
Right.
have the privilege. And so, in order for us to be effective, we have to be loud because they can't be. And we should not be willing to watch our brothers and sisters be sent to their slaughter because
Amen.
that is exactly what's happening. And we have to use our voice to stop that. Right. So, I was not gonna close out with a safety brief, just because we'll do that tomorrow. I do want to say there are actions going in Florida over the next 48 hours. I'm organizing one locally in Jacksonville, right now, so that that will happen. But please, if you are a veteran, even you, Nick, I know you're watching. I know you're gung ho for the fucking bullshit, man. It's time. We can't we can't watch our brothers and sisters be sent to their slaughter. And that's what's going to happen. And I don't want that for this generation. I have friends that are serving, like personal friends that I do not want to watch die. I have friends that their kids are serving. People I served with, their children are serving. And the point of the GWAT era vet is we don't want to send our sons and daughters. We did that. We went. So please,
Amen.
please utilize your power as a veteran. Speak out locally, on a state scale, speak to the media. It is time, right? Like, I know that we're in, Brian, you said it about domestic terrorism. Florida just signed a fucking bill that made what we're doing right now illegal. And I can be labeled a domestic terrorist at any moment.
Hmm.
But you know what? Fuck it. My oath is to the Constitution and to make sure that this country survives. And if we let fear rule us and good men do nothing, our country will fail. And it is on the GWAT kids. It's our time to shine. Everybody talks shit about millennials. But it is our time to shine and to lead the way. And in your local area, gather your forces, get to work. And I do want to call out April 12th. April 12th, Vets Against Fascism call. It is a national call to action for veterans watching that want to get involved. You don't have to be involved in any organization. I don't give a shit. Like, you can join our org, cool. If you don't, also cool. It is a container for veterans that want to do the work and fight back against what's going on right now, right? And collecting power as veterans and utilizing that power. April 12th, national call for Vets Against Fascism. the information is on the About Face website. Please look it up. And tomorrow we are talking about money and politics. We were going to do it on Saturday. Mayhem had an emergency. John had an emergency. A bunch of us had an emergency. So we all just kind of came on here and stumbled our way through 2 hours. But we all have studied up from this conversation tomorrow with Mayhem. And so it should be very, very interesting because we do have a diaspora of belief systems on money and politics. And an expert, the co-founder of Money Out of Politics, who is a regular panel member here and friend and veteran brother, Mayhem, who will be showcasing the efforts of how to get money out of politics. And if we can't overturn Citizens United effectively, how we do that at the state level and how you can get involved with their movement, because it is a very talked about issue on both sides of the aisle about the corruption and the power, the dilution of the vote, of your vote through money being spent. So I do hope that you join us tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern right here. And I want to thank you guys, Carl, as always, Crayon Box Politics partners with 5051 Vets for doing this for the Smoke Pit. We love Carl. And I do want to thank my two mass holes, Brian and John. And Logan is normally on here too. The Mass 5051 guys are representing and 5051 National. So I do want to appreciate you guys. I appreciate y'all pitching it and being like, hey, let's talk about this because this matters, right? Everybody is scared across the country right now. Civilians are scared. We don't know what's going on. What are veterans thinking? Our thoughts matter because we've been here. Right? Like we thrive in chaos. We thrive in these type of environments. And so it is important that we have these conversations openly for others to hear our thoughts and our conversations. So I want everybody to have a good night and we will see you tomorrow at 8 with Mayhem.